Meeting is called to order. Roll call. Let's do pledge allegiance.
I got the kids.
Oh, okay. Let's turn this to the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Tonight, we have two students. Jaylene Pinero is a senior from Lowell. She's enrolled in the painting and design program and is a member of the cheerleading and lacrosse teams. She's also an active member of Skills USA. Jaylene plans to attend college to study interior design. Also, we have Enrico Natoli. He's a junior from Dracut. He's enrolled in the programming and web development. He's a member of the soccer, swim, and track team and is active member of Skills USA. I'd like to invite Jaylene and Enrico join the vice chair and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I have to make that.
No, you want that.
That's my code for the day.
Smile. Keep your head up.
You weren't in your
Okay,
office. You weren't in your office.
Just to share the information that this meeting is being recorded for, to be televised in future dates. If we could have the roll call, please.
Mr. Booton,
I'm here.
Mr. Tatsias.
Here.
Mr. Gigi.
Here.
Mr. O'Hare.
Yeah.
Mr. Sheehan.
Here.
Mr. Moran.
Yeah.
Mr. Lemay.
Yeah.
Mr. Bahu.
Yes, here. Okay, Mr. Moran, is there anybody signed up for a public appearance?
There is no one signed up as public.
Okay, thank you. Are there any school committee communications? Okay, we'll actually have the report of the student representative, Aya, to share the great news that's happening here at Great Lowell Tech.
The Skills USA Chapter Executive Council attended the Fall State Leadership Conference for Workplace Readiness in Marlborough, Mass, November 18th through the 20th. This conference hosted over 600 student leaders from technical schools around the state for professional development, leadership training, and chapter enrichment activities. We are proud to announce that our students were extremely successful during the conference. We are particularly proud that all of our students claimed proactive awards, which are bestowed upon the first 25 attendees who have mastered all 20 qualifications of the Skills USA Massachusetts State Leader Award. President Evan Bladis, a senior in electronics, earned a second-place Team Quality Award, a second-place medal for the Skills USA Frameworks Video Challenge, his Proactive Award, and his State Leader Award. Vice President Karen Vinal, a sophomore in CAD, earned a first-place Team Quality Award, a second-place medal for the Skills USA Framework Case Study Project, her Proactive Award, and her State Leader Award. Secretary Gregory Herbert, a junior in CAD, earned a first-place Team Quality Award, was an outstanding participant in the Community Construction Project, and earned his Proactive Award and his State Leader Award. Treasurer Eric Rosado, a junior in Business and Marketing Education, earned a third-place Team Quality Award, a third-place medal in the Community Service Planning Project, his Proactive Award, and his State Leader Award. Parliamentarian Nayeli Guzman, a senior in Programming and Web Design, earned a first-place Team Quality Award, a third-place medal in Community Construction Project, was honored with the Courtesy Corp Representative Award, and earned her Proactive Award and her State Leader Award. Historian Nikayla Rodriguez, a junior in medical assisting, earned a second-place Team Quality Award, was an outstanding participant on the Skills USA Framework Video Challenge team, and earned her Proactive Award and State Leader Award. Chapter Ambassador Araceli Lopez, a senior in engineering, earned a third-place Team Quality Award, was an outstanding participant on the Community Service Planning Project, received a Community Service Safety Award, and earned her Proactive Award and State Leader Award. Skills USA Massachusetts State Parliamentarian Anthony Malesi, a senior in Programming and Web Design, who assisted with coordinating and facilitating all activities at the conference. In particular, Anthony's workshop illustrating the framework's essential elements of personal skills in the workplace inspired students to develop strategies that encourage flexibility, adaptability, and personal responsibilities. The senior class recently elected their class officers. Congratulations to the new senior officer team. President Adrian Delgado, Vice President Matthew Barbosa, Historian Molly Pimentel, and Secretary Mariah Colon. The freshman class took a field trip to Chunky's in Nashua on Monday, December 3rd to see the movie Instant Family. Drama Club is finishing up their auditions for this year's drama productions. They are preparing for 2 plays, 10 Ways to Survive the End of the World and 14 Lines. Greater Lowell students will be hosting the annual holiday show on December 22nd in the lecture hall. Now for some athletics. The boys and girls basketball teams opened up their seasons in impressive fashion with big wins over Greater Lawrence. They will both continue with their early season league slates this week against Shawsheen and Chelsea. Swim and dive came out of the blocks fast, topping league rival Shawsheen on Friday, December 7th. The team will travel to Boston Latin Academy this week, as well as host Blue Hills on Friday, December 14th. Indoor track will open their second season as a varsity program this week on December 12th at Lynn Tech. The team will be looking to improve off last season's solid first campaign. Their cheer team will look to build off the fall season and compete for the CAC Winter Championship and a spot at D1 North Regionals. They will also be performing at boys varsity basketball games this season. The Griffin Wrestlers opened up with non-league wins over Woburn and Concord Carlisle on December 8th. The team will host Wayland on December 12th before competing in the annual Wilmington Sons of Italy tourney on December 15th. And that is it.
Very good. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you. Have a
Very
great
much,
night.
Aya.
You too.
Thank
Before you run, can I just say one thing?
Of course you can, Mr. O'Hare.
I've gone to a couple of the athletic games, both in the worst weather I've ever seen in Chelmsford High School.
Oh, man.
And I also saw some other, yes, it was very, very cold. And a couple of other games that now it's indoors, but the Saint group is there and they're right there. There's the captain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have
Thank
a good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes of our November 15, 2018 vote. Motion by Mr. Moran, second by Mr. Gigi. Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi? Yes. Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yeah.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay, report of our, motion to approve the warrants for the past month of the expenditures. Motion to waive the reading by Mr. Booton, seconded by Mr. Tatsias. Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay, motion to approve the expenditures for the sum of $3,605,000. Oh, I'm sorry, $3,605,024.93. Motion approval by Mr. Sheehan, second by Mr. O'Hare.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay, report of general counsel.
That's good.
Good. Very good.
Good news.
He gets paid by the word.
And the report of our superintendent director.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Tonight, a few items on the agenda. First, I wanted to inform the committee that we just procured pricing on a new electricity pricing bid. Due to the good work of George Garabedian, and this was many hours of work that he put in, and I participated also, that we're able to change our electric rate and save 2 cents a kilowatt hour. That's going to calculate at least $80,000 annually going forward. Also, in June, coming up in 2019, we're also going to see further savings with a capacity cost reduction also. This new contract, it went into effect the beginning of December, and it's going to run through December 2021. Again, I want to thank George Garabini. Good work on this. It's going to save the district a tremendous amount of money. It's good news for us. Next item on the agenda is our cooperative education report. The report reflects a slight bump up from total number of students in co-op from last year. We also see fluctuations in different vocational areas. We know we have work to do. Sometimes some of those numbers on a yearly basis are higher in some vocational programs. Sometimes they're a little bit lower. But generally, I think we're in the right direction overall with the amount of seniors that we have going out in co-op. So that report's in there for you to take a look at. And I'm pleased, and I'd like to thank Stacy Bazanzin for her hard work, continued hard work moving forward. Next on the agenda is a donation from Cummings Property with the recommendation from one of our parents, David Furtado of Lowell, for $1,000 to be used for the volleyball program. You vote on this.
Motion to approve by Mr. Booton, seconded by Mr. Gigi. Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
We have a few items on the business manager's report, so I'm going to yield to the business manager.
Hello again. Okay, the first item I have was electricity, but the superintendent just went through that, so I'll move on to our next item. Just want to give you a little information that we just went out for seeking proposals for food service management companies. The RFP went out November 26th, and proposals are due December 19th. Once we get them, we'll review them and come back and, after meeting with the superintendent, make a recommendation to the committee. We had a mandatory walkthrough the facility last Tuesday. Out of over a dozen proposals being requested, only three companies came in. There was Chartwell's, Aramark, and another company, Fresh Picks Cafe. I think they were, from what I understand, not a lot of New Hampshire schools. But we'll see what comes in on the 19th and move accordingly.
George?
Yes, sir.
So to date, next week is the 19th.
Correct.
So we have 3 so far?
It was a mandatory site visit. So if they don't show up for a site visit, they're not qualified to submit a proposal. So we have 3 that came out for the site. And we won't know if they're actually
Right.
going to submit or not till the 19th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, Mr. Garabedian.
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan, go ahead.
Is this, do we put an RFP out for food service every year, or is this a?
No,
how
it
does that
goes,
work?
it goes out every 5 years.
Okay, all right.
And what happens is you go out for a 1-year contract with an option for 4 one-year renewals.
Mhm.
And that's how every year we'll come out after, if everything's going well, we'll come up for a renewal contract vote each year
All right, thank you.
and thereafter.
I like that approach anyway. It keeps everyone on their toes. I think the committee likes it
Absolutely.
too. Yeah.
The next item is, I have a budget transfer requests on the attached page. One, I have 2 separate ones, one in the amount of $326,494. It's to fund various salary accounts as explained on the transfer sheet.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the transfer of $326,494.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Lemay, seconded by Mr. Sheehan. Any discussion on that? Okay, roll call.
Yeah.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran? Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay,
My
And
second transfer, totaling $527,121 is, as you all know, we reviewed these in detail during our finance subcommittee meeting. And these lists for transfers were put together on request from the, through the superintendent, from the different departments in their advisory committee recommendations, and ask for your approval.
Okay, motion by Mr. Moran for approval, second by Mr. Booton. Any questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
The next piece was just, I inserted on the back page there, budget timeline, just to kind of give you an idea of how we were progressing through the budget process and what we hope to accomplish through the start of the next year, just for informational purpose. My last piece is communication to the members on establishing the OPEB trust fund, which is Other Post-Employment Benefit Trust Fund, to be set up. And I have a list of votes, if I could go through them and explain them, so to hopefully answer your questions before we go any further. This is required in order for the district to set up the Post-Employment Benefit Trust Fund, in order to fund, it's for health insurance, retiree health insurance costs. There's a liability that's sitting out there on our financial statements as well as throughout the state and the country. And we're want to establish it and start addressing the liability. There's no requirement that X number of dollars be deposited into the trust each year. It's completely up to the district and discretionary. The first vote is basically to accept the provisions of Chapter 32B, Section 20. It's required by law that we accept it, and that we're also voting to establish the OPEB trust fund. That's the basic requirement. The second section, which is also required, is that the Greater Lowell Technical High School is designating the treasurer of the district to serve as the custodian of the OPEB fund. That's another requirement. The third resolve is identifying the initial investment into the OPEB trust fund. This would be $500,000. As you recall, the committee appropriated $200,000 in fiscal 18's budget, and fiscal 19 is appropriated $300,000. So that would be the initial deposit into the trust fund once it's established. The fourth section is just to vote to designate the trustees to the OPEB trust fund. In talking with the superintendent and in looking at the law, we determined, we identified 7 people to be on the board. The law states that it can be from 5 to 13, trustees. So we identified school chairman, school committee chairman, superintendent director, school business administrator, and the district treasurer. Those will be by title, so whoever's in that position would be on the board. The other 3 members, a retiree member and an employee member, by law, they have to be voted by their body. So the retiree member has to be voted by the retirees. The employee member has to be voted by the employees within the building. And the citizen resident, that is by law appointed by the CEO, or in this case would be the superintendent. So that was our determination. Again, that's up to the board what they prefer. The 5th section just deals with the treasurer as the custodian of the OPEB fund, is authorized to execute and deliver the investment agreement with the State Retiree Benefit Trust Fund Board. This is requirement by law for the State Retirement Trust Board. And the final one, resolved that to adopt the trust fund agreement, which I had attached here for your perusal. This is basically the same agreement that was approved by the board back in 2015, and it was revised with legal tweaks by our legal firm. So this would get us going in the right direction. If we get this approved, then our next step would be I would meet with like HR and reach out to, the retirees to see if anybody's interested in being on the board. Then we'd have to set up some kind of an election process for them to pick a member. And same thing internally with the active employee. Once those members are identified, then at that point we'd be able to hold a trust fund meeting. And then move on to the next step with the trustees.
Okay. And I believe we need a motion passed.
Yes, all these have to be voted on as indicated there. And, I've been working with Mike, and if any, did I hit anything that I?
I think you did everything.
Okay, so we need to have it read out loud, correct? As a motion?
I would recommend that, yeah.
Okay, and I'll move that to have the secretary do that.
Okay. And these are to be voted on individually, my understanding, correct?
Individually or as a whole?
As a whole or individually, Mike?
Individually?
Okay. Okay, so number one, resolve that the Greater Lowell Regional Vocational Technical School District hereby accepts the provisions of Chapter 32B, Section 20 of the Mass General Laws as amended by Chapter 218, Section 15 of the Acts of 2016, the Act, and establishes an other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, the OPEB fund. Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Moran, seconded by Mr. Booton. Any questions? Question by Mr. Gigi.
Legal's reviewed all of this and it's okay?
Legal has reviewed this?
Yes, I've reviewed it. It's okay.
Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Number two, resolved that in accordance with the Act, Greater Lowell Regional Vocational Technical School District hereby designates the treasurer of the Greater Lowell Regional Vocational Technical School District to serve as custodian of the OPEB fund, the custodian.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Moran, seconded by Mr. Tatsias. Any questions? Okay, you reviewed this. You've reviewed all of this, Mr. Macaro?
Yes, I have.
Okay, terrific. Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Number three, resolved that the sum of $500,000 be appropriated as the initial investment into the OPEB fund.
Okay. Motion to approve by Mr. O'Hare, seconded by,
I had a question.
sure, seconded by Mr. Lemay. And go ahead, question, Mr. Lemay.
To either George or Mike, relative to the sum of $500,000, is that a standard sum, or are we bound by anything?
No, these are the amounts that were already appropriated by the committee. 200,000 was appropriated in fiscal 18's budget, which we have set aside in the trust, and 300,000 was appropriated in this fiscal year budget. And it's just identifying that's the amount, the total of the amount that will be initially deposited into that state retirement trust board on our behalf.
Okay, Mr. Gigi.
Briefly, I think it's good prudent business practices to plan ahead. However, if you look at the mortgage crash, sometimes the people that, don't plan well are still covered. So is this prudent for the school district to appropriate this money at this time? where most likely if something failed, there would be a bailout of some sort of the pension plan. And we could use this money in a different area.
Well, this, this liability that sits on our books and all districts' books, the auditors come in and the rating agencies, they look to see, you know, they can see what the liability is, but they look at the districts and the communities to see if they're attempting to at least fund a piece of that liability. If you don't fund it, that's gonna reflect negatively on any kind of financial ratings. Like, I mean, I know we just did our bond issues on the school, but, you know, something else down the road, you know, you'll be faced with that too.
Yeah, just because this is so large, it's not gonna be allowed to fail.
Right.
Okay.
And I believe it's a state law as well, that most districts, cities, towns, schools.
Oh, yeah, everybody's
Develop an
got it
OPEB.
up or they're in the process, yes.
Okay. Any
Thank
more
you.
questions on
Thank you.
item
You're
3?
Um,
Mr. Tatsias.
What does this money go for?
It basically will be invested through the retiree, you know, the Mass Retiree Benefits Trust Fund on our behalf, as well as like, I believe there's probably like 80 to 100 other districts and communities where their funds are managed through that state board.
Where is it spent?
It just sits there and grows to help address your liability.
Insurance.
It's, if it needed to be utilized, I believe it could be for health insurance related purposes only. But I don't think you'd want to do that if the intent is to trying to at least put some money aside towards that liability.
Okay, question by Mr. Gigi.
Just a brief follow-up. Is there a guideline that's being presented? I know we voted this before. Is there a guideline that's being presented to kind of preserve our status or our rating? Is there a certain number that we're kind of looking at in the future?
I don't have an answer for that. I know this, just setting this up, it does not lock any community into contributing a certain dollar amount. I
Okay.
mean, because if times are tough, if times ever get tight, and you couldn't put 300,000 in, if you could put 25 or 50, there's no, I don't think there is a guideline. I mean, we could have to check with our actuarial.
Doesn't GASB have a set number that they recommend that you put into this every year? But the number, your liability is probably, I don't know what the number is, it's probably so large
39 million?
that this
No,
is
it's up
just the
now.
first
Higher.
step for you to take
Yeah.
to address this liability that you and every other community and public entity have right there. So this has become a big thing because it has been required that you now report your OPEB liability on your financial statements.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you,
question,
George.
I believe by Mr. Booton.
I was actually just going to make the comment, when we first talked about doing this a few years ago, one of the understandings was at a point it can be used like E&D funds. If we get to a certain point, times become lean, we have trouble making our budget, we can then use some of this money towards our budget
For
on certain things.
health
Healthcare.
insurance.
related.
For health insurance, which
It's gonna be one of the
would be
big
gone
ones.
for so if we need it, it's there. It's a way to put the money aside
With the vote of the trustees.
for a rainy day. Sure.
All right.
Okay, any other questions about item 3? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
We're on to number 4. Resolved that the following persons be designated as trustees of the OPEB fund. 1, school committee chairperson. 2, superintendent director. 3, school business administrator. 4, district treasurer. 5, retiree member. 6, employee member. And 7, citizen/resident.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve?
Before you,
One second.
before the motion, that means that these names could rotate depending on who is going to be in office at that time.
Mr. O'Hare, if we could just have the motion first, and then we'll open it up for
That's fine,
discussion.
that's fine.
Okay, terrific. Motion by, to approve by Mr. Moran, seconded by Mr. Tatsias, excuse me. Any discussion on item 4? Okay, I'd like to say something. This school committee, yeah, I appreciate working on this school committee. And I know that generally speaking, the school committee chairperson changes annually. And I believe this is a very large sum of money. Right now, it's $500,000. As years progress, it's going to get into the millions. And I heard Mr. Garabedian indicate that we could have as many as 13 people on this particular committee. So I'd like to make the recommendation to the board. If the board wants to approve, they can. Not just to have the school committee chairperson who's rotating annually, but to have an extra person appointed by the school committee chairperson to go ahead and be a part of this, simply because if the chairperson, may lose an election and may sort of be gone or something like that, then it would be nice to have that second look of eyes by one of our school committee members to sort of have knowledge about this very large sum of money and this OPEB fund that's going to be a part of this district for the rest of its time.
Mr. Bahu,
Go ahead.
I read a lot of this, several pages here, and it states in here, should someone step down or not, in any one of these positions, another person then moves forward.
Sure. And I understand that. I'm just thinking it's more of something that you would have multiple people with knowledge about this same
Are you
investment.
saying there should be an alternate?
No, I'm saying a person, an additional person that would be assigned by the chairman. So per se, if I was the chairman, I may say, I may ask any one of you guys that may want to reside on that.
Just to ask that, so it'd be, you'd ask another school committee member?
That's correct.
Okay,
And I don't know how you guys feel about that. Of course, I'm opening this discussion.
I'm fine
What's
with
your
it.
take on it, Mr. Superintendent?
Adding number 8, school committee member,
Makes
is
it
not a
even.
problem.
I think it's a good idea.
Question, is it better to have an even number or an odd number?
I don't think there's anything wrong with an even number. It just keeps people accountable. We have open discussion, and we can make it an odd number, and I understand why, just so that we don't have split votes and keep
Well,
going
that
on and
even-
on.
That even number is really an alternate, right?
It's not an alternate. It's a person that will be sitting at the table that has a vote on any decisions.
I see. So it would be no more than, we have 8 school committee members.
Yeah.
That's
and
an
we-
even number.
Right, and we can even pull up to 13. We can add a couple of more people if we so desire. I know that Mr. Gigi just asked a question about the even number. Mr. Booton and I have been on the even number side of issues before, and sometimes it takes forever to conclude.
The outcome always works out.
It sure does.
We could always add 2 members and make it 9. That'll be
I'm good
back
with
to an
I'm
odd.
good with the one member.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
If it was
Okay.
that much of a concern, that's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Mr. O'Hare, question?
Yeah, just under the way this was presented to us, and I assume that you were the originator of, transferring what was recommended. But because of the way we voted during this last election, which is kind of confusing in the first place.
It's on me.
Yeah, all right. And now we're trying to add some additional things in our own. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion on this. So if the school committee chairman or whatever,
Well, this is
whoever
about the
first
OPEB.
person-
This is-
I
this is
understand
about
that.
The Investment Act.
but it's pretty much the same thing. So if you have someone, listen, people in Drake have different mindset than people in Dunstable or Lowell or whatever. And why wouldn't you just vote the way it's being recommended here? The chairman retires or someone gets reelected, a new person comes in. That's basically what could be.
And all I'm doing is I'm recommending that we have two sets of eyes on this very large investment opportunity that is going to be part of our retirement and unemployment benefits forever in this school district. Just 2 sets of eyes from the school committee, so they can always have conversation about it. And everybody, at the end of the day, everybody would be in the know, because if
Yeah.
you and I were on that committee, we would always have that discussion. If somebody had asked questions about it, they wouldn't just have to go to me about it or just you about it, but, eventually we just keep that conversation going. Eventually, as we roll through 8 chairmans, we're going to have, everybody's gonna sort of know about it. But as time.
That's not what it's asking, it's not who knows about it, it's who's going to be in charge of it. I mean, that's just my thought. I think there's gonna be too many people, a lot of people getting involved in it. I don't know if you agree with that, or,
Well, we already have 7. I'm asking to increase it by 1 to 8.
yeah.
On a permanent basis.
On a permanent basis, that's correct. Recommended by the school committee chair as sort of a, what should I say this? A subcommittee, if you will. It's a sub-person. Go ahead, Mr. Booth.
So it's, each of the retiring member, the employee member, the citizen is a 3-year term.
That's correct.
The chairperson continues until there's a new chairperson. I'm all for adding the 8th person on as a school committee member. What would be their term? Would it be, I guess you'd have to, if you're going to add the person, I'd like to see under 5.1, paragraph 5.1, say it was me and I got to that number 8 spot. Do I do that for the next X amount of years, or is it a yearly position?
Right, and I think it should be yearly because we could have the chairman, whoever the chairman is of that time, appoint that person on that
Okay,
committee.
I
So
would
that
go
would
with
be 1
that. I
year.
just think that should be added.
Okay, and that would be 4.1 actually, because this is item 4.
So you're asking that
No,
the chair,
5.1 of the agreement.
Oh, okay.
just to summarize, you're asking that the school committee have the sole and unfettered discretion to appoint, and now would be an 8th person who would be on the school committee, or would it be better to have the school committee nominate and appoint the person they want on the?
Either
I
way
think
works
this is
by
better.
me.
I actually like that idea better. Having the school committee vote on somebody to take on that
The
responsibility.
annual position.
And then that person can stay, and I don't know if it's annual, they can stay as long as they're still in
It
office.
should be annual,
It's going to be annual because the chairman is going to change annual.
yeah.
Correct? So that's why it would be an annual discussion, if you will. You know, it could be Mr. Booton for the first year, and then, you know, everybody just say, hey, Booton, you're doing a good job, or Mr. Booton, you're doing a good job, let's recommend Mr. Booton for the next year.
Yeah,
And
I
so on.
think
Board
that,
might just want it for 1 year.
right, and I think the recommendation of the whole committee voting on it would help to keep it fluid, so to speak, that the chairperson isn't just directing everything on their way, because the chairperson 10 years from now could direct one of their, somebody that aligns with them that may not be beneficial to the rest of the committee. So I think a vote would be a better way to go, you know,
Okay.
looking forward.
Okay, and let's, for the sake of argument, would that vote take place the same day as our chairman vote?
Yes,
Yeah, why not?
Okay,
yes, a good point.
so we have an amendment to this.
So, and the amendment is what? We're gonna,
We're gonna have 1 extra school committee member on the OPEB
so we're gonna have 2
board.
people.
That's correct.
Yes.
Voted by the school committee on an annual basis, the day that we vote for the chairman of the school committee.
Second,
Okay? Great. So we have a amendment. Roll call on the
Any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Could I ask any questions
Absolutely.
from George or Mike, legal
No,
counsel?
you're adding one more school committee member.
Yes.
To make it 8. It's just when we go to number 6, we have to just reflect that 8th position in, on page 4 of the agreement.
5.1,
You're
right,
correct.
paragraph
Yeah,
5.1?
we could add another sentence, you know, basically what you said, in one school committee member, one member of the school committee appointed annually by the school committee.
By the
Voted
committee as
by
a
the
whole.
Voted by
committee.
the school, yes.
Sure, and that's why we have, you know,
Okay,
our
yeah.
attorney here.
So,
That sentence will be under 5.1 as well.
yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can we actually vote on that now that because you have to read it specifically to get it approved, right?
Mm-hmm.
The language?
Oh, we're doing an amended, well, I don't know.
I'm not gonna speak for school council, but I think Mr. Bahu made an amendment, it was supported. I think it's legitimate, you just vote on it, like I said, I would defer to school council. But
Right, well, we haven't taken a roll call yet, but
Right, but like
I'm
you said,
hoping that
you
it gets
did
supported.
that, so. Because you can just add in that one sentence after the fact, after it's already voted on, correct?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't have to add it down there until you get to number 6.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, roll call on the amendment?
Mr. Booton?
Yes,
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes,
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yeah.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay, now do we need to have a roll call on number 4? I believe we do, with the amendment. Okay, we vote on number 4. Okay. Mr. Lemay,
Okay.
number 5.
Number 5, resolved that the treasurer of the Greater Lowell Regional Vocational Technical School District, as custodian of the OPEB Fund, be and hereby is authorized to execute and deliver the investment agreement with the State Retiree Benefits Trust Fund Board of Trustees on behalf of Greater Lowell Regional Vocational Technical School District for the purpose of making the representations and warranties, acknowledgments, and agreements on the part of Greater Lowell Regional Vocational Technical School District to be made and performed thereunder.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve item 5. Motion by Mr. Tatsias, second by, did that again, second by Mr. Booton. Any questions in pertaining to item 5? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay. Item 6, Mr. Secretary.
Item number 6, resolved to adopt the Greater Lowell Regional Vocational Technical School District Other Post-Employment Benefits, OPEB Trust Agreement.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Mr. O'Hare, seconded by Mr. Gigi. Any questions on item 6? Mr. Booton.
I guess, substitute motion to paragraph 5.1 to add the additional school committee member to be chosen annually at the officers' election, and continue for a period of 1 year.
Yeah, whatever the wording is.
Did I get the
Okay.
wording
We'll
right?
put it
Yep.
in here.
Sounds correct. Mr. Macaro, you have that?
That's the amendment to 5.1?
Yes.
Yeah, I have that. It's gonna read, and one school committee member to be appointed annually by the school committee or something to that effect.
By the school
Yes.
committee as a whole. Okay. Great. Next roll call, please. I'm sorry, second on the amendment? Second by Mr. Moran.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Business Manager,
Well,
are there any other items that you would like to discuss
I
with
think we're
us?
done. Thank you very much.
That was
We're
quick.
off and running on that one.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, under old business, is there any, would anybody like to discuss anything under old business, or shall we just move forward? Okay. Next item would be new business.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Moran.
I don't know if you want to say it's new business, but I recently recognized in the Lowell Sun, like to congratulate the Drake High School cheerleaders for winning the state championship.
Great. Sounds,
Keeping Drake in the mix here.
sounds like a lot of work was done, and
Yes. very
an
proud.
accomplishment of being state champion is something that's
Yeah.
definitely should be
What sport?
recognized.
Cheerleaders. The
Cheerleaders.
cheerleaders. They won the championship.
Okay, thank you for that information. Mr. Moran? Okay, next item would be the committeemen's motions. We have
Okay.
4 tonight.
Okay?
The first motion would be by Mr. Moran, that in an effort to conserve energy, that the building be closed on Monday, December 24, 2018, and Monday, December 31, 2018, and that employees required to work be given those 2 days off. Mr. Moran, would you like to speak on that?
It's my feelings that.
I'm sorry, can we have a first and a second on that before we discuss? Paul's the motion,
Seconded by Mr. Shea.
second by Mr. Sheen. Okay, go ahead. Thank you, Cheryl.
That, gonna open up the building for 3 hours on those days, on December, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And, my feelings are that the people that do come in here are kind of the glue of the building, they're the ones that, they kind of go a little unnoticed. I'm just saying this, And our
Where,
feelings
yeah.
that, just
On
to
the
open the
agenda.
doors on that either day,
Right there.
starts over $3,000. The heat on, put the lights on, put whatever, and, so I'm recommending that we, shut the building down.
Okay. Anybody like to discuss? Any questions? Mr. Gigi?
Has there any been, what would the cost savings be?
The cost savings is not to open up the building, not to come in, heat the building up, put the lights on, and
There's no number assigned to it?
I said it costs us approximately $3,000.
Oh, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 3,000.
Any other questions? Mr. Lemay?
Any problems with that, Joe?
No, I don't
I don't think you want to put him in the middle, so.
No, I don't, I appreciate it. No, the conservation number that Mr. Moore had asked me about that, it's hard to pinpoint what that day, particular days are gonna cost due to the weather, right? I can tell you all in, average for our school district, it's 3,000 a day. It could be much colder that day, be much, could be much higher. However, there's less lighting that day, perhaps, because some of the classrooms, there's no school, obviously. Students are not here. Look, I do value our staff tremendously, especially some of the support staff that work tremendously hard. But also, I also look at the fact that I am a manager also, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, question by Mr. Gigi.
Do we have any, I know that we have contracts and that they have to be in the building on certain days, a certain number of days. Would that prevent them from fulfilling any of those contracts if they didn't come in?
Yeah,
on it?
yeah. The one that would be affected is the security guards, because they are here regardless for the building on that particular day. But most likely, we would in the past, I believe, I have to look, but I remember this from last year, but last year was a Sunday. But I think in the past, we closed the building earlier anyway. But I got to go back and look at those records to see what we did on the 24th. The 31st is more like a closer day to a regular day than the 24th. Security would be the only ones affected.
Okay, question by Mr. Booton.
How many people does this affect?
There's the multiple collective bargain groups. It would be, let me see now, it would be obviously the administrative. It would be, we'll put it this way, it's all except the teachers' collective bargain group, cluster bargain group, cluster chair bargain group, paraprofessional bargain group. It would affect the rest of them.
So on that vein, so it's about 100 people, 80 to 100 people?
I don't think it's that much, is it?
So
It
80
could
to
be.
100 people. And I'm just trying to think of a ballpark. If somebody made $40 an hour times 8, that's $320. Times 100 people, that's $32,000 of lost work, times 2. So you're looking at $65,000 of work hours. And I understand they could use vacation day or personal days for those days that they have contracted. So you're giving up, it's $3,000 to open the school for the 2 days, or $6,000. You're looking at probably 65, anywhere from 60 to 70, rough numbers, $70,000 of lost productivity. And then again, you may have people that still want to come in those days because they have projects for students, so.
Okay, question by Mr. Gigi.
I'm just more concerned about the slippery slope. You do it this year, then you're gonna have to do it just about every year. And I'm not adverse to it, because the productivity is gonna be minimal anyhow. We already, human nature, you're here a couple of hours, it's before a big holiday, and you're thinking about the festivities in the last moment. I understand where Paul's coming, and I can respect exactly what he's saying. Productivity is gonna be low anyhow, but I'm more concerned about the slippery slope and the precedent that we're setting for the future. And that can be a challenge sometimes.
Any other questions, Mr. Tatsias?
Has this been an issue like during bargaining with the union?
In the negotiations I just went through, this wasn't a point that was brought up even casually.
Okay, question by Mr. O'Hare.
Yeah, just on the same vein, I noticed electric company trucks out in front of the school. I don't want to say on a daily basis, but pretty close to a daily basis. Are they going to be, I don't know what they're doing. I thought all that those projects were done, but regardless of what they're doing, are they going to be affected if they are working in those days? Are they going to be affected that they can't commit to work? And if they do commit to work, that kind of defeats the whole process. Incidentally, what are they doing? I mean, they've been there for the year, all right?
We might have to call National Grid and ask that question.
Well, I don't think it is, you know, quite frankly, but it's, my point is that there's people other than employees of Greater Lowell that are working there. It appears to me every day. Do we have a major problem?
I can answer. I do think that the majority of the time, if not all of the time, it's our HVAC maintenance, changing our filters. They're almost here at least once a week because we have an aggressive maintenance contract on our HVAC filters. So I think the trucks we see in there, maintenance-based trucks, there's very few issues in terms of that, where there's a problem. It's maintenance-based, and if they'd be here that day, they could work through the day, I believe. I don't even know if they'd be scheduled that day anyway from their own company.
Okay, question by Mr. Sheehan.
I think it's a nice gesture from this board, you know, from the administration. I think if you look in the neighboring communities, City Hall and Lowell, 90% of the time usually gets shut down the day before a major holiday. I know in Drake they do the same thing. I'm not sure what they do up in the, Kingsbury and Dunstable, but I would think that they might go along the same lines. Setting a precedent, it's a year-to-year thing. And I understand that there's a dollar amount charged that, attached to everything, but I think it's a nice gesture.
Doing just for this year?
Okay.
It's just for this, the motion is just for this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
Mr. Moran, go ahead.
I also think that a lot of the people that are involved in that do go above and beyond their regular time, so that, I know the amount of money you're talking about, but I think, I know some secretaries who go around delivering things, or, some people that do extra things that, they don't punch out at a certain time if they have to stay, custodial staff, maintenance staff, so I just think, my personal opinion, it's Christmas, it's the holidays,
Point understood, Mr. Moran. Question by Mr. Booton.
Just a comment. I know, as Mr. Sheehan said, some of the towns actually, Sauls may allow the employees to go home early. I know that's been a tradition here when they have, the staff has worked on a Christmas Eve. I will also say that this came up probably 3-4 years ago, and it was a similar time. Maybe it was the day after Christmas on a Thursday or Friday. Christmas might have been on a Thursday, whatever the case was. We actually voted on these separate. So Christmas Eve was voted on separately than New Year's Eve. As the superintendent said, New Year's Eve is kind of a regular workday for most people. So I don't know if that's an interest of anybody to vote on them separately or if you want to vote on them together.
Okay, Mr. Moran, at your motion, would you be open to having this being voted on as two motions, one to have the school closed on Christmas Eve, and then one to have the school closed on New Year's Eve, or would you rather have it voted on as a whole? We can amend the motion.
You divide the question.
Sure. You can amend it.
We did do that.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that, I guess.
Okay, so let's amend the motion to read Motion by Mr. Moran that in an effort to conserve energy, the building be closed on Monday, December 24, and that employees required to work be given that day off. You be okay with that amendment
Vote on that.
on December 24, and then we'll
Yeah.
read the
Okay.
second one in a moment? Okay. I guess we have to vote for the amended motion. I guess we maybe need a second to that amended motion. Second by Mr. Booton. Okay, roll call on the motion to have the school closed on December 24.
Mr. Booton?
No.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
No. And I'm the Grinch.
Mr. O'Hare?
No.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
No.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Did not pass.
Okay, motion by Mr. Moran, in an effort to conserve energy, the building be closed on Monday, December 31, and that employees required to work be given that day off. That's an amended motion, seconded by Mr. Sheehan. Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
No.
Mr. Tatsias?
No.
Mr. Gigi?
No.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu? Confused.
So aren't I.
I am too. Yes.
Right, so December 31st passed, the building will be closed, December 24th did not pass.
Okay, thank you.
That's,
I know it's best.
I don't know.
There goes the logic.
I think people were confused.
Freezing. Yeah, get up to the side.
On what day, on what days takes priority.
They get out early.
Okay, do we want to discuss that motion at all anymore? Yes, no. Okay, I'm the chair. I have two motions on the, coming up. So I'm going to have to move my chairmanship to Mr. Lemay, who is the next in line to be the chair. So Mr. Lemay, if you don't mind reading my first motion and leading the discussion, please. Mm-hmm.
This was the 24th, was passing on the 31st, was it?
It doesn't make any sense logically to me.
I agree.
Okay, so can we-
Whatever.
well,
It was already voted on.
that's correct. Okay, yes, please.
Motion by Mr. Bahu that based on the new election standards, I propose new officers are elected January 1st to December 31st term.
Okay, great. So if I could,
I need a second.
could we get a second?
We have it by Mr. Booton.
Okay,
Second
so,
by-
so this
Go
is a motion that I thought, considering our new state standards, we're all on the ballot together now, where we used to be on ballots at separate times of our biennial elections, meaning Dunstable may have a ballot election in April, and Drake may have an election in April or May, and Tingsboro had an election in April or May. And now what it is we're on the statewide ballot. And being on that statewide ballot, we're all elected on the same dates. So prior, what we currently do is we have our chairman voted on in the March meeting, taking effect April 1st of every year and ending on March 31st. I think that was, well, that had a lot to do with the overall city election. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to consolidate it, where if anyone is, based on the new election standards, everybody is being elected in the November election. With that being the case, I think January 1st start date for a chairman would be good for multiple reasons. The most important reason is that we're heading into budget season at that point. And sometimes during budget season, the chairman changes. We start, having a discussion, during budget season in January, February, March. March meeting, we choose a new chairman. Come April, we have a new chairman, and that may throw off our budget process a bit. Secondly, being with this new ballot, I think it's important that our new elected members, and any of them from now and moving forward, that they have an option to vote for who their chairman is. I think it would give them a little a little comfort knowing that they were able to choose who the chairman is. Thirdly, I think, and this is also actually very important, a number of times while I've been on this school committee, we have been doing a superintendent search. And a superintendent search is a very, one of the biggest things that we do as a school committee. And generally, the superintendent search isn't done until sometime in May. So we start with a chairman in January, February, when we start our search process. Actually starts in November. But by the time we get to April 1st, we're changing our chairman again, and then we have a new chairman. So I think, as far as budgets and searches for very important roles here at Greater Lowell Tech, as well as the new election process, that a January 1 to a December 31 chairman might be a little bit more fluid for what goes on in this school district.
Mr. Chairman or Mr. Secretary? Can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Committeeman Booton.
I agree with what you're saying. I agree in the context that what you're proposing. Can I suggest an amendment to it? You're saying vote on January 1st. You'd actually have a vote that day. I
Oh, yeah,
probably
well, it
won't be
doesn't-
here.
No, it would
Would you
take
mind
effect.
amending that?
It
to
would take
the
effect.
Should the vote then, would you consider having the vote at the December meeting when the new representative is here? Because that would be their meeting, and then they could, and then start the January meeting?
Absolutely, yeah. The way that this was printed was unfortunately the way that I sort of outed it a little bit
I
too
think
quickly.
all your points were spot on. I think functional to help the students, to help the school. It makes tremendous sense. It's a benefit to not just the committee members to be here and have continuity, but it would help the school and the students. So I think it's a great motion.
But thank you, Mr. Booton. Yeah, I would have no problem with that amendment, which is, vote the meeting prior.
At the
Just
December
to take
meeting,
effect,
because a new
just
person.
to take effect January 1.
Oh, okay.
The chairman to take effect January 1.
Any other questions?
If I may,
Mr. O'Hare?
everybody that's going to run for office in the future is not going to be all running on the same day.
I don't understand that.
5
of them will be one day, and 3 of them will be another
on
day.
another day. That's what I meant by another day. In Lowell, in Dracut, and Tingsville, and Dunstable, everybody voted on their city or town's voting day. But that isn't going to take place in the future, because we're going to be all staggered. And I think
It's all November.
yeah.
It's all on the state ballot.
It's realigned now in line with the
Yeah.
state reps and the.
Gubernatorial and presidential.
Yeah.
There's going to be some changes, I'll tell you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Any other questions?
We can do that.
I think it makes sense.
I have a question.
Committeeman Moran?
I'm not 100% sure that that we should take the vote in December. January.
We could very well take have a special meeting on inauguration day whenever the person starts. We could have a,
Like Lowell, I know is I think first Wednesday in January, you're all gonna be sworn in. You know, maybe the middle of the month, you have a subcommittee
It's the
meeting,
first
or it
Monday
starts
after
in
the first
February.
Monday.
Well, and Lowell generally starts right away in January. However, all I'm trying to say is that this particular seat here at Greater Lowell Tech be effective January 1 through December 31st. When we take the exact vote, it could be in the December school committee meeting. It could very well be in January if we have a inauguration in January, whenever we start our new school committee members. So it just takes effect. I'm looking to have it take effect from January 1 of any year to December 31st of that same year. Any questions about that, Mr. Moran?
I guess not.
Just question.
Councilman
If
Gigi?
the concern is January, we're not quite, you can actually call it February for the office. If that's the issue, so you don't have any special meetings or anything.
If you had January meeting and start February 1st,
Yeah.
you're pretty clear, only a month off. So
'Cause I understand
everybody's
Mr. Bahu's
in,
concerns,
yeah,
and I think it's-
what
it's
Mr. Moran's saying
merited.
is, if the votes aren't certified, if there's something that goes, a recount, some sort of extension, you may not have the rep in at the December meeting, but you definitely have at the January meeting. So would February 1st cure all that? We're still new to all
If
this.
the chair, who's the chair now, then, you know, or when the next election comes up, and then, like I say, then you appoint a new reorg in February.
So what I'm hearing is to amend the motion to take the vote in January for the new chairman to begin February 1st and
It
then
will give us
end
the
on
January
January
meeting to,
31st.
it will give us the January meeting to vote for the reorganization, and then it will take place in February.
And I understand that, but realistically, I think my only question here is, if we're doing a superintendent search.
Yeah.
And the superintendent searches generally start, late November. We appoint the chairman
Why
for
are we
that.
getting a new superintendent?
Not at this current
guy's
time.
going, is he?
Not at this current time that I know of. Mr. Superintendent, you plan on staying?
Gotta get through the night.
Okay,
He's
well,
just
this is daily.
It's just listening.
Mr. Lemay,
I don't see a difference. You have February, March, April, May, June, July, you know what I mean? What's the difference? It's only 1 month or half a month.
And I'm just trying, this is the way that I thought through this motion, so, I understand exactly what you're
I
saying.
understand, but how you worded it.
Okay.
couldn't a special meeting be called in January, the first week of January, to do this process?
Yes, it seems like a good idea, but the toughest thing is sometimes getting everybody here for this one particular vote. That's the only issue that I would have. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, did anybody ever notify you?
I'm a vice chairman and
No,
currently I am
no,
just
that
a
you were
school committee
elected,
member.
that you were elected and I was elected. Did anybody ever notify you
I
from
still have,
that?
I still have not been
That's-
notified, nor
yeah,
have there been any
right.
certified votes.
That's why I'm a little cautious. Don't get me wrong.
Okay,
You might get notified by August.
Can
okay,
you read the current motion
So-
back before we have a roll call?
sure.
Motion as amended?
Yes.
December meeting. Okay. Motion, yeah, I'm gonna read it out loud as amended. Motion by myself, Mr. Bahu, that based on the new election standards, I propose that offices are elected, I'm sorry, I propose the chairman and new offices begin their term January 1 and end December 31. When we take that vote can be arbitrary. We can, we may not vote for a new chairman tonight, we may vote in the next meeting, but it will take effect January 1.
So that amendment is, that motion you put in is flexible?
The only thing that's flexible is when we vote for the new chairman. We could vote for the new chairman on December 29, we could vote for the new chairman on January 5. But it takes effect January 1. The new chairman's position takes effect January 1 and ends December 31.
Vice Chair, may I be heard for just a moment?
Absolutely.
So I'm just looking at your regional school district agreement. And it does indicate right now where it says you're going to elect officers on April 1st of each year thereafter. Is that what has been done historically? So, along with what we had talked about before, what you're essentially doing is talking about amending your regional school agreement. So, you could vote on this tonight, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be effective for this coming January. There's a process that would have to be followed to amend your regional school district. So, and we'd have to follow that process.
Could you share what that process
Yeah,
is?
so that the process is first under the same regional school district, under section 7 of the regional school district, and if anyone wants to take a look at it, I have it, but it's on page 16. It says that amendments to the regional school district may be brought by, where is it? By a 2/3 vote. You need a 2/3 vote of this committee to make an amendment. Then from there, it's DESE, that's the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's their rule that any amendments to a regional school district agreement have to be shared with their legal counsel and approved. Then once that happens, you have to draft out what the amendment is, and it has to go to each of the member communities in the regional school district. Per your own bylaws, not bylaws, your own regional school district agreement, it has to be approved, and I'll read it for. It has to be approved. Such amendment shall take effect upon its acceptance by all of the member municipalities, acceptance by each town by a majority vote of the town meeting, as aforesaid, and acceptance by the city of Lowell to be by a majority vote of its city council. So there is a little bit of a process. It's not like this would go into effect for
So, Mr.
January.
Vaccaro, first of all, how long would that whole process take? Would it take more than 60 days?
I would imagine it will take more than 60 days. The first thing that we would have to do is, if you have the 2/3 vote here of this committee, then what I would recommend that we could do is we could draft what the amendment is to your bylaws. I think if you did this tonight, we could easily, I think the most advisable thing would be to bring that to you at your next meeting in January and just make sure that everybody is comfortable with the way the bylaws have been amended. Once we have this approval of this board, then I would contact DESE and send that to them. How long they will take, that's sort of the wild card on how fast they'll get back in terms of reviewing that. The good process about that is if there's any concern about what you're done, we're going to find out, I think, pretty quickly from DESE as to whether or not you think that this is allowable or agreeable. Once we get their blessing, then we have to send it to the towns and they have to put it on their elections, and I'm not sure what the dates are.
On their agenda?
They have to put it.
On the town.
It has to be at the town meeting.
And it has
On
to
the
go to-
town meeting,
Yeah,
not
so
at their
it's-
city council.
Town
The-
meeting is May
there's
for
one-
Dunstable and Tingsboro and June for.
Yeah, I know, every town has usually a fall or special, I don't know when they are. So it is going to be a little bit of a process. Again, there's nothing wrong with getting this process started tonight and taking this vote tonight, but I think that's the best way to do it. And I know you have, particularly the vice chair and I have spoken before this meeting, because of the consent decree that went into effect in 2015, which changed the way that your members, when they take office, there's been some confusion about that. So this might be a way to try to resolve that going forward.
Well, we do need something, in writing.
Mhm.
But, and I think, the only reason I'm trying to do this is because I'm an interim chairman right now. I
Yeah.
am not the chairman that has been voted on. I am just filling in because the previous chairman chose not to run for the seat.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to sort of move this thing forward one way or the other.
So what does one do in the interim?
What does one do in the interim in terms of who is, right now, I guess your bylaws, we had talked about maybe doing this tonight, but now that I see that it says April 1st of this year, I mean, you're technically supposed to wait until April 1st to re-elect. So I think that you get to wear this crown until that time, I think is probably the best way. But if you want to try to change that vote, again, there's nothing wrong with taking that motion and going forward there.
So I think the motion has to read to initiate the process to follow the procedures.
It'd be a year before.
It could be a year, could very well be a year.
I mean, 'cause you can't vote on it this year.
Because I think, just speaking on behalf of Drake-It, obviously Paul and I represent Drake-It. as regional school, like if we were just like, if I was a regular school committee member in Dragut, I can draft a warrant article and send it in because I'm an elected official for that town. Since we represent the regional school, I don't know if we need to do it by voter petition. I mean, it's only 10 signatures from people in Dragut.
Every district, every part of the district has to.
Right. Well, but what I'm trying to say is, like, we might have to get 10 signatures instead of just the two of us putting this warrant article forward. So that's something we have to look into.
I don't think you need, there's two ways that you can make amendments under the regional school district agreement. There's one is by a 2/3 vote of this committee trying to do an amendment, and then the process for which I just laid out. The other way is getting a petition signed by 10% of the registered voters of any one of the member municipalities. It still has to go before either way. You still have to have that vote, and it has to be drafted and go to the cities and towns.
You're talking about doing the, drafting up the language for the town meeting warrant.
For a
That's
warrant,
what
a
he's
town meeting
talking
warrant,
about.
like you had mentioned, it has to go in front of town meeting.
Yeah.
So we have to issue a warrant article to be presented on town meeting floor.
Yeah, and
Whether
that's,
Paul and I can do that, or, I mean, we can just get 10 registered voters and Dragut to do that. That's not that
well,
hard.
I think we could draft what that motion is. Again,
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
we're
yeah.
gonna,
That motion will come from the
if it's
floor.
the 2/3 vote, then again, we'll have to send, we'll have to draft for DESI and say, this is the motion that we'd like to put forward to our member
Right.
communities.
I think I'm confused, or maybe, I think what Matt's saying is they can't just get it onto the town meeting without getting 10 votes.
Well, it's 10
There's a
signatures.
10
procedure,
signatures.
no procedure.
So
You can't
that
put
we
it
just
on there.
can't do something here and send it to their town meeting. In order to get it there, they have to have 10 votes to go on to their town
No,
meeting.
I
Is
think,
that what you're
well,
saying?
we need to ask the town clerk and Dragut if Paul and I can just, whatever the
Yeah.
article is, like Mr. Bahu, I mean, I think this would just be the article personally, but you know, I'll leave that up to the attorney. We just have to find out, like, Dragut's bylaws. What I'm trying to say is I'm not sure, because we represent the regional school, if Paul and I can just submit it, or we just get 10 signatures and.
I
we can get that done
I
in
see what
5
you're
minutes.
saying. In each member town, what is it they have to do?
Exactly.
Let me just read it so it's clear. I know I was kind of paraphrasing. In either case, this is the 10 signatures or the vote. The secretary of the committee shall mail or deliver a notice in writing to the Board of Selectmen of each of the member towns and to the City Council of Lowell that a proposal to amend this agreement has been made, and shall enclose a copy of such proposal without the signatures in the case of the proposal by petition. The selectmen of each member town shall include in the warrant for the next annual or special town meeting called for the purpose an article stating the proposal or the substance thereof.
Okay, then it's on the selectmen, so that's fine.
Selectmen
yeah.
can
Yeah,
do
it'd
that.
be on the selectmen.
So it may be the way this is written, which is if we do this, that they automatically have to put it on
Yeah.
there.
One quick question. You're talking about what you would do for Dracut. Now, in the meantime, there are people that have been elected from Lowell, maybe Dunstable and others. Are they going to be included in this?
This,
Is that going, and if they are going to be included, is that another election for them?
now this is talking about what Mr. Bahu brought up is if you're contemplating changing your regional school district agreements.
Yeah.
And currently, right now, your regional school district agreement talks about when election of officers will occur. And what has been brought up right now is to change that. Right now, it says it's in April.
Yeah.
But you've had a change to your whole election process given the consent decree.
Yeah.
And maybe waiting to April, I don't think makes the most sense, particularly as Mr. Bahu has said, he's been here in this, he's inherited this seat. So is looking to change that. In order to change that, the process would have to be followed. That would go to all of the member communities. So it wouldn't just be Dracut, it would be the other towns as well. They'd all have to vote on this.
It has to go to town meeting, it does, it has to
Yeah.
go to town meeting.
Mr. McCarroll, one question.
Sure.
I know I've heard warrants and I've heard townspeople that need to sign something to bring it to Dracut. Meeting, town meeting. When we spoke about this originally,
Yeah.
was it that the secretary, whoever the secretary is at the time, needs to submit all, first it goes to DESI, DESI needs to approve it, and then upon DESI approving it, the secretary
Then the
has a letter.
secretary sends out the
And then he
letter.
sends out the letter,
Yeah.
you know, on behalf of the Greater Lowell Tech School Committee
Yeah.
to each town clerk
That's correct.
to be put on the, each town's agenda.
Yes.
And then
Now,
each town has to approve it individually, and unless it's approved, 100%, it doesn't take effect.
I would say unless it's improved, the way that your current agreement says right now, unless you have 100% approval by all your membership towns, then you can't change the agreement.
We have to revert back to what it is.
Yeah, well, not revert back. Right now, you're still staying with what it is. It just
So
wouldn't
our
change.
letterhead's just a blank person.
Now, the one question that is a good question that has sort of been brought up is how much discretion does each town or what needs to be taken? I mean, I read this right here that says the selectmen of each member town shall include in the warrant for the next annual or special town meeting. So to me, I don't think, if you want to propose this, my reading of the agreement is they have to put it on, not that there's any discretion. So.
And that's how that's how I listened to it, so.
You know, like when the article comes up at the town meeting, it says, say, selectmen recommendation, approval, blah, 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 approval, and then they take a vote, and it depends, maybe the residents don't approve.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's how all the articles are.
So this is basically another election. However, it's not an election.
It's not
an
it's not
Well,
an elec- it's
this
not
is
an election.
another way that people are gonna get a signature. All right? How are you?
No, he just said it's the selectmen
It's not.
that'll put it
Select,
before
oh,
the.
the
Yeah.
selectmen.
Yeah,
will.
it's-
Selectmen are
it-
gonna handle it.
Election becomes it's
Well,
it's
it's the
confusing.
selectmen
It's
and council
confusing
that
just
does it,
because
yeah.
of
Show
what
the
happens.
reason.
It goes on the business meeting,
Yeah.
and it has
Yeah,
to
she's
be
doing
voted
roll
on,
calls.
but it's not
I'm just
considered an
gonna make one
election.
more. Okay, see what happens. Okay, and this is my motion, and I've sort of brought it forward, and I know it's somewhat confusion because of the regional agreement that was made up in 1967 or so. But I think it's something that we should do to get the ball rolling, simply because of the new way that we conduct elections in this district, which is statewide, on the state ballot now. So I'm positive that we need a 2/3 vote. But of course, if anybody has any questions about it, you're welcome to vote no, and then we can just, go with what we've been doing here for the past 40 years, 50 years.
So is the motion going to be to start the process? Or is it going to be what you have here?
Yep. So let me amend the motion one more time. Motion by Mr. Bahu, that based on the new election standards, I proposed that we start a process that officers are elected from January 31 to a December 31 term. Effective by approval of state standards and municipal standards.
Second.
Do you have a concern?
I don't think you need that last part.
Okay.
I think the easiest thing, because I think the best thing to do is, if you want to start the process, to vote on changing, this would be now listening to it, is to take a vote to change the bylaws to reflect when your new officers will be made. And then you and I could even work on that and bring that back in January for the official approval. I think that might be the
Okay,
the
so what I'm
best way to
hearing is
do it.
maybe move this discussion to the next meeting?
And just in terms of everyone understanding on what they're doing, it might be best to draft a proposed amendment about when the officers would take place. Have that on for everybody to review.
It's gonna be a ballot question, basically.
No
No,
ballot.
it's not a ballot. Again, ballot's using sort of the election terminology. It's a question that will have to be put on one of the business meetings for
Just
the
move the
town.
table till next
So-
month.
That's correct.
It's just two forms of government, like Lowell has planning government, you have city manager, city council, we have town meeting. So,
Just a brief, go ahead.
I would recommend to the body that we table this motion till next month. And in that process, unless council's.
No, I think that tabling it is fine. We could I could work with Mr. Bahu to draft exactly what it is that
Bring
he
forward
wants and
next
bring
month.
that forward next month.
Okay.
That might make things easier for everyone.
Since this was created by decree, the new election, one man, one vote by a court order, can we ask the court to intervene and tell us that we can do this? Might be quicker.
I think the issue that we have is your decree, and the reason why you're here is your decree talks about when the elections occur, right? What the decree does not address is when do your, two questions. It doesn't address when your new elected officials take place, when they take their seat. And right now, the decree doesn't change at all when you elect your officers. Right now, your bylaws say they're elected in April of the following year. But we have a new member from Dracut that was elected in November and showed up at the last place. Now you have to wait until April to elect officers. It doesn't seem right now that you've got everybody on the state.
I think
It's
our
because
attorney
it's
should
be
clear
elected
up,
in
go
May.
through the charter and make some recommendations at the next meeting
And
to
table.
clear up all of this, so we're doing it one time. Because like you said, the situation Mr. Sheehan was in, and to change the officers, I think it would be great to have you fix all of that, so one-shot deal for the city and towns.
I agree.
Yeah,
So
and
based on.
you don't even need a motion. You and I can work on that and then have something together to put on for the agenda for the next time if you want to just table this talk for now.
Take this one off.
So based on this conversation, I am going to withdraw this motion at this time, bring it forward in a different way at the next meeting. And also, the second motion that I have, which is very similar to what this current motion is, to go ahead and work on that as well and bring them both in to our next meeting in January.
Very good.
Can I ask a question? The bylaws for Greater Lowell Tech, when was the last time that was looked at?
1967.
Okay. It's just a suggestion. I know it's kind of out of order, but
Everything stayed the same.
could we put this on for the next meeting and maybe set up a subcommittee with the attorney to go through this? We did this in Dragut years ago because it hadn't been done in 40 years. To go through, because some of that stuff is probably going to need to be updated.
Through the whole
charter. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of work,
You can
but
check, I didn't think there was that much, other than this new election, but sure, not opposed.
Just
a thought.
regarding that particular issue, wouldn't it be better for DECA to deal with that instead of it coming out of our budget? Kind of put a great deal of time and effort into it.
well,
Because if the
it's our
charter,
by,
is so if
those
the
are
char-
our, it's our charter and our bylaws. I think we would want to look at that first before we send that off to somebody else. It's just a thought, that's all, just speaking out loud.
Okay, well, it's all something that we've spoken about. We have a pretty good idea of what we're trying to do, and let's see what the next meeting brings to us. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good. Good.
Okay.
What is the date of the next meeting? Do you already know it?
January 10th. The package is being mailed next week.
You're good.
Thank you, Ms. Secretary.
if that's the last, I just want to kind of revisit one of the orders regarding the vote that we took regarding the conservation.
Actually,
And I'm wondering if we can, I believe there may have been some confusion, and I just want to make sure that it's clear, and if there's a process to kind of revise what actually occurred.
okay, so here's what happened. We took two individual votes, may I share? We took two individual votes, and we chose to close the school, or open the school on December 24th, and have all essential administrators come to this building and secretaries, and that would be roughly 100 employees. And then on December 31st, we chose to go ahead and close the school, and have all those essential employees, the 100 people, basically have that day off. There may have been some confusion, and I know this whole board wants to do the very best that we can for our staff, as well as for everybody that works in this building. So I'm going to sort of read something here that was written for me. And if everybody can sort of agree, 100% of us, all of us, we can go ahead and revisit those motions and take a different vote. So here I go. I sense that Mr. Moran's motion were a little bit, some members might have been a little confused. I ask for reconsideration of a vote on Mr. Moran's motion, only if there is interest in this. This will need a first and a second to even discuss. This will need to be a majority vote. I would actually, personally, would rather have it as a unanimous vote. Ask, is this something we want to talk about again do we want to be thorough? So, how does the committee feel about revisiting those motions?
I would like to make the motion
Okay. Within,
To revisit,
to revisit it. And then we can have a second, and then we can discuss it.
Dissatisfied with it, we should.
we need to have a second
okay,
to have discussion.
okay. So I made
Isn't there
a,
parliamentary procedure relative to moving for reconsideration?
That's what we're doing.
okay. So
You're
it
the maker
was a
of-
motion by me,
Second.
and then it was seconded by Mr. Tatsias.
Okay, roll
So it
call.
was Mr. Tatsias.
Do we have any discussion before roll call?
So it's a motion to revisit Mr. Moran's.
Two individual motions.
What's the confusion? It was suggested that they be split. They were split. We voted on them.
On the
One-
vote, it was confusion.
Okay, I wasn't confused.
Be no harm.
Yeah, well, maybe some of us weren't and some of us might, so.
Roll call vote on that.
Okay, could we have a roll call on this?
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes, I'd like to
Mr. O'Hare?
revisit.
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. I'm gonna read this motion. Gigi, you good? You want me to read it? Motion to bring a question again to reconsider the two motions by Mr. Moran. Okay, and I think we're having this discussion simply because we all know that Christmas Eve is one of those very busy holidays that time is of the essence and enjoyment is very active and social gatherings are very prominent.
Okay, so moved.
And New Year's sometimes can sort of float a little differently. So, with that being the case,
Are we voting on both?
we yes.
Thank you.
We are
to the original motion?
we are going back to the original motion and we're going to vote on each motion individually. As long as
My
that's
original
okay.
motion, but to split the motion.
As long as that's okay with you, Mr. Moran.
Yeah, that's fine. yeah.
Okay. So do you want to read the motion, Mr. Moran, or would you like me to read it for you?
My original motion?
The revised one.
That an effort to conserve the energy for the building be closed on Monday the 24th, Christmas Eve, and Monday, December 31st, on New Year's Eve, to be separate motions. Personally speaking, I think if I had to have a choice, I'd rather have Christmas Eve off. Like you say, I think that, there's a lot more going on Christmas Eve.
So, Mr. Moran, you're reading your motion, you're gonna split them, right? So
Yes.
your first motion is,
My first motion is to close the school on December 24th.
thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Anybody want to second that motion?
Right here.
Mr. Sheehan will second that motion. Okay, is there any discussion? Closing the school on December 24th. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Still no.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay, second motion, Mr. Moran.
Second motion is to close the school on Monday, December 31st, which is New Year's Eve.
Okay,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sheehan. Okay, any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
No.
Mr. Tatsias?
No.
Mr. Gigi?
No.
Mr. O'Hare?
No.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
No.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
So December 31st, the building will be open.
And on December 24th,
It'll be
the
closed.
building will be closed. Okay,
That's better.
thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Moran.
Thank you.
Very good motion. Okay, and now we have one more motion by Mr. Booton. And I'm going to read that aloud. Motion by Mr. Booton, requesting that the superintendent report on our ongoing planned future relationships with Middlesex Community College and the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. Second by anyone? Second by Mr. Tatsias. Mr. Booton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I get asked the question often. We've mentioned our partnership with the two schools. I'd just like something in writing so I could understand what we have. I'd also like to know where we're going in the future. I know the governor's office, it's been a priority to try to mend or meld the two, our school with secondary, post-secondary education. So I'd like a report to see where we're at and what opportunities we have.
Okay, any discussion?
Sounds good.
Roll call.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay, and then, an approval of subcommittees, or, I'm sorry, an approval of the subcommittee, finance subcommittee meeting that we had earlier this evening. Okay, sure. Okay. So we discussed, what was moving forward in our budget for 2019, 2020. And we were enlightened by Mr. Garabedian and Mr. Mastercola about our moving forward in this school district. And we also discussed any budget transfers that we all approved this evening, and moving forward and how we're going to progress with our budget for the next year. So that was pretty much what came up out of it, and I thank you, all of you people, for attending. And I also, before we entertain a motion to adjourn, I just want to wish everybody that's out there watching our meeting, happy holidays, happy New Year. We thank you for being involved in our school, and we look forward to serving you regularly.
And be safe and good health.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Merry
Here,
Christmas,
Mr.
everybody.
Booton.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Booton, second by Mr. Sheehan.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes. Okay, meeting is adjourned.